Today is your birthday, and your gift is a collection of photos from your childhood. There's a photo of your 2-year-old self that you don't really recognize, a photo of yourself in a school play, some photos of you and your schoolmates hanging out, photos of your graduation day. And as you look through these childhood memories, you notice from when you were 7 to 17 and what you are now, you have changed so much. Your body has changed and your mind has changed too. But you know that all these photos are of the same person, you, just different stages of your life. But how did you come to that conclusion? What determines which past or future being is you? For that matter, why is it that anyone at all who existed back then is you? Now, this brings us to the idea of persistence. What does it take for a person to persist from one time to another? To continue existing rather than cease to exist? A more fundamental question of what even makes us exist? What makes us alive? Now, this is a whole bunch of questions, and these questions are definitely not new. They have been thought about for centuries, but the answers still seem to evade us. So in this episode and in the episodes to follow, let's take on an ambitious journey. Let's try to get some answers to these questions. Now, the first step is to unravel these questions a little to see what exactly we're missing. So let's start with, what do we already know about life? Early thinkers observed apparent spontaneity and control over actions in living beings. This made them question if physical laws of nature are even applicable to living beings. And these observations gave rise to ideas of a supernatural spirit in living beings that made us special. Philosophers such as Plato and Aristotle too believed in the idea of a soul. But Aristotle's soul wasn't something supernatural. He broke down the concept of life into functions performed by different living beings. And his idea of a soul was the faculty that enabled living beings to perform those functions. Now, as science developed and biological advances were made, we learned more about the mechanisms giving rise to life and how the evolution of matter from inorganic to organic and then more complex organic systems leads to the creation of life. Now, with these learnings, life is usually described as complex systems which grow, have metabolism, respond to stimuli, reproduce, survive, and evolve. This is not an exhaustive list, but do these functions explain our lives completely? For instance, think of a computer program performing a function. It does not have any understanding of what it is doing. All it is doing is symbol manipulation. It's the human user who gives meaning to the functions performed by the computer. Similarly, our lives have meaning because all of these biological functions are accompanied by a subjective experience. So where does my subjective experience fit in? Is it just the result of complex neural activity in the brain? Let's do a simple thought experiment. Imagine a brilliant neuroscientist, Mary, who has spent her entire life in a black and white room. She has never seen color, but she studies to become an expert in color vision. She knows everything about the physics of how different wavelengths of light produce different colors, and the biology of how the eyes and the brain work together to recognize colors. The question here is that if one day she is released from this room, she goes outside and sees color for the first time, does she learn anything new? Is there anything about experiencing color that wasn't already captured in her knowledge? Now, most people would intuitively say yes. Mary does learn something new, because experiencing color is very different than just knowing about it. There is something that it feels like to experience color. Philosopher Frank Jackson, who proposed this thought experiment, argues that if Mary does learn something new, then there is something more to our experience of color than just its physical description. And if these experiences do transcend their physical description, then physical science may not be able to explain conscious experiences at all. Now, not all philosophers agree with this, and we still don't have a scientific answer to whether Mary learned something new or not. So for today's episode, I'll leave you here with this question. Does Mary learn something new? Let me know what you think. And in the next episode, we'll dive a little deeper into this problem of experience. So stay tuned and thanks for watching.